Before this video starts, if you enjoyed this video, there are many more like it already on the channel, with many more like it to come in the future, so subscribe. I am trying to hit 125,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would really appreciate it. I upload 6 to 7 days a week on this channel, so if you're looking for some consistent basketball talk, this is the place for it. Also, drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Two quick things. First of all, go ahead and check out the new movie review that I put out over on my film channel. I did a review of The Devil All the Time. The movie that has Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson is a new movie on Netflix. I thought it was very good, and if you'd like to hear my opinion on that, go do that. I plan on doing multiple movie reviews over there when there are new movies coming out frequently. That's obviously not happening right now. And two, I have started a Patreon. It's going to be the top link in the description as well as the pinned comment. If you want to support this content with more than just your subscription and your view, that is a way to do it. There are perks like I'm going to be making a Discord server. There's going to be some extra content over there, like an extra 2K talk like this one every 2 weeks of the patrons choosing. So if that interests you, go check that out. If not, I appreciate any and all support. But with that out of the way, today I want to talk about Doc Rivers and why the Clippers should fire him. So after losing Game 7 to the Denver Nuggets, I tweeted that I want to hear about Doc Rivers being fired 5 minutes after the buzzer goes off. And that obviously has not happened. In fact, a report came out that the Clippers are going to be keeping Doc Rivers. Now, Doc Rivers has been a coach that I have been conflicted on for quite a while. He's up there with Steve Kerr and Mike Budenholzer in terms of my inability to evaluate how good of a coach they actually are. They have moments where I think they're geniuses and moments where I think they're idiots. And in the case of Doc Rivers, as the years have gone on, the moments of, wow, he's an idiot, have got up a lot more than the moments of, wow, he's a genius. Now, please bear in mind that Doc Rivers knows far more about basketball than I will ever dream of knowing. So when I say an idiot, I'm saying relative to other coaches in the league based on my own ability to evaluate him, which is far less significant than Doc Rivers. I have no misconceptions about my knowledge of basketball being more than that of Doc Rivers. However, I do know some pretty basic things about coaching, some pretty basic fundamentals, one of which is that you should have an offensive system, and that if it's not working, and other things are not working on the defensive end as well, that you should make adjustments. We saw this with Mike Budenholzer in the playoffs with the Milwaukee Bucks, both last year versus the Raptors and this year versus the Miami Heat, an inability to make adjustments on the fly which allow them to succumb to their weaknesses that the Heat and the Raptors exploited. And then for the Rockets, when their offensive system was not working, where their three-point shooting was not working, Mike D'Antoni had no plan for that. Mike D'Antoni, no clue how to adjust his offense whatsoever, so as a result, the Rockets crashed and burned. Sure, they were not expected to win that series, but losing in 5 games in the fashion they did was just downright unacceptable. That inability to adjust is half of the reason why they went down to the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first place, or why that series was close in the first place. And that same problem persists with Doc Rivers, but at least in the case of Mike Budenholzer and Mike D'Antoni, I actually think those two guys are pretty good at creating a good scheme. Now, they don't make adjustments to said scheme, which is a huge flaw. However, the actual basic groundwork that they lay down is a lot better than that of Doc Rivers, because the Los Angeles Clippers have this meme with them that, or I don't think they're given this meme, but they should be, that is kind of similar to what happened with the Oklahoma City Thunder with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. People would clown on Scott Brooks because it seemed like his offensive game plan was give the ball to KD and Russ. Well, Doc Rivers has that same game plan, and it's give the ball to Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, or Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. And in this series versus the Nuggets, I think that was proven. And I plan on making a video on this topic in general, because we've seen this happen with 3 coaches in the 2020 playoffs now, as I've mentioned them a second ago. But Doc Rivers is not good at making adjustments, and even if he was, the system that he runs to begin with is so flawed that he was gonna have to make adjustments, and that's an issue in itself. The Clippers don't really have an offensive system. They have some sets, obviously. They're not just playing iso ball every possession. However, the game plan is very basic. They're getting the ball to Kawhi and they're getting the ball to Paul George. Some of them are coming off screens for some open jump shots, and then if they don't get an open jump shot, they create from there. Lou Williams is creating offense in the isolation. Paul George is creating offense in the isolation. Kawhi Leonard is creating offense in the isolation. And Montrezl Harrell is benefiting from that in the pick and roll and things like that. And as a result, it's not a hard offense to really guard once you have it figured out. The Denver Nuggets are really not all that as a defensive team. Not a bad defensive team, despite Jokic being a liability and Jamal Murray not being great on that end. But they're not bad. They have guys like Jeremy Grant, Paul Millsap, and Gary Harris, who are all really good defensive players. And even though Michael Porter Jr. has no idea what he's doing on that end, he is tall, lengthy, and athletic, so he does make up for it pretty often. But the Clippers, the level of offensive talent that they have on that team should be able to destroy the Nuggets defense. However, that was obviously not the case, as they went on a 7-minute stretch where they only scored one basket in the fourth quarter. Both Kawhi and Paul George in the 7th game of this series shot abysmally. The reason why is because a weak defense is happy to have a team that ISOs on them all the time. They're happy with that because even though there are some elite isolation players on this team in Lou, Kawhi, and George, I've said their name a million times now, but even though they are good at that, it's also one of the easiest plays to guard because it's so simple. Like, everybody else on the court is standing around while you isolate, and basically, as long as the man-to-man guy has you, like when Jeremy Grant was on them or Gary Harris was on them, when they have that matchup good, or even Paul Millsap, it's fine. Because if they can handle the one-on-one matchup, they don't have to worry about your isolation. And the offense is stagnant because you're just dribbling the ball, trying to create something, and if it results in a bad shot or you get stopped, you have to kick it out. No one has any idea what they're doing because they're just waiting for you to score, and then the whole offense falls apart. I saw that happen over and over and over again with the Clippers, not only in Game 7, not only in this series versus the Nuggets, not only in the playoffs in general, in the entirety existence of this roster as a whole. I made a video on the Clippers not too long ago, around, actually it was pretty long ago, but you know what I mean. It was on how the Clippers have an over-reliance on difficult shot making, and they don't have an offensive system that allows them to get really easy looks consistently. Now, the one rebuttal to that was, hey, the Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell pick and roll is pretty effective, but as we saw in the playoffs, that got completely shut down, as both of them did not play well. And as a result of that, they had zero easy offense to go to. Basically, unless the defense fucked up and gave an open look, the Clippers were not getting a single easy shot in this series. It was entirely reliant on a defense falling apart for them to get an easy shot. And that's not how it should be. Teams should be able to, and elite teams and championship teams should be able to go against good defensive teams, not just okay ones, and get good looks on a consistent basis. And the Clippers are not able to do that because Doc Rivers doesn't have an offensive system for these guys whatsoever. And as a result, we saw what happened. Now, I'm not saying that all of this is to blame on Doc Rivers, because if you're a talent at the level of Kawhi Leonard and a talent at the level of what Paul George is supposedly, then you should be winning this series versus the Nuggets, even if you have the worst coach in the league. Even if Jim Boylen was the head coach of the Clippers, they should have won that series versus the Nuggets. However, with those players wavering, it is nice to have a coach in place that can make the adjustment and make up for the fact that those players are struggling. And Doc Rivers is not that coach. So, the Los Angeles Clippers need to fire Doc Rivers. Now, it is possible that both Kawhi and Paul George really like Doc Rivers, and as a result, they're kind of holding the Clippers hostage in that they cannot fire Doc Rivers, because with both of those guys being on one-year deals, you have to do whatever those guys like right now, because your future is entirely in their hands. However, if that's not the case, this guy needs to go. Steve Ballmer apparently has a very high trust in Doc Rivers. I would hope that losing in this fashion would change that. He's already blown 2 3-1 leads for the Clippers alone. He blew a 3-1 lead back when I believe it was when he was the coach of the Orlando Magic, because I'm pretty sure they blew a 3-1 lead when they had T-Mac. And that's 3 blown 3-1 leads for one coach. There's a common denominator there, which is when a team figures out what they're doing, he can't do anything to make up for it. It's what the Rockets did, it's what the Nuggets did, and it's whatever the team that was facing the Magic did. So, fire Doc Rivers. As for some guys who I would hire, I'll recommend Kenny Atkinson and Dave Yeager every day of the week. They might be a little bit better with young guys, but I also think they're just good coaches. And, I mean, with coaching, I think people make the mistake of just assuming that every good coach that's out there we're going to know about. And that's not the case. Brad Stevens came out of nowhere. Mike Budenholzer, even though he's not amazing, relatively came out of nowhere. He still won 2 Coach of the Year awards, so he's still a good coach. Steve Kerr, even though he was an NBA player, no one knew that he could coach like he did. Yeah, so there might be just some guy that comes out of the woodwork that we have no idea who they are, and they're actually a great coach. Maybe the Clippers discover another Brad Stevens and they win a championship easily. There are not many adjustments that the Clippers can make, and that's why I would say that firing Doc Rivers and finding a replacement is the best case for actually finding somebody who is going to make a difference, because they're kind of locked up in the cap, and after this year, they could be fucked. So make some changes, and this is the change that I would make. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.